Are we recording?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm going to call to order the first hearing of the afternoon on the application of Camille Thornell by Keith Hintzman at 87 and 89 Houston Avenue, dated February 16th, 2023, to build a 10.4 by 8.5 foot dormer addition on the left side of the roof of his two-family home. The property is located in a Residence C zoning district. The building is currently a 3-story building when only 1.2 stories are allowed in Section 5A1 height regulations and half-story. This addition will be built at a distance of 17 feet from the front property line when 20 are normally required by Section 6B1 front yards, and 5.6 feet from the left side property line when 10 are normally required by the Section 6C1 side yards of the Milton zoning bylaw. This addition would increase the area of the 3rd story, all is therein set forth in said application, which is on file with the Board of Appeals. Good afternoon. My name is Virginia Donahue King. I'm the zoning administrator, and I will be constituting the board at this hearing. We have in the file, we have the application of the applicant and the denial letter from our former building inspector, Joe Prondak, and as well as letters from, let's see, well, that was a letter authorizing Keith Hintzman of KWH Design to represent us at the hearing. And that's about it. So I'm going to turn it over to the applicant and his spokesperson and let us know what it is that they'd like to do a little bit more in detail and just flesh it out a little bit for us.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you very much for the introduction. I'll start by sharing my screen here. And pardon me. So is everyone looking at a PDF? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I'll make this full screen here.
Oh, I neglected to say that I have that in the file as well. So these are things that the public could be looking at. Oops, we
Okay.
lost your screen. Oh, it's back again. Okay.
And
Okay, go ahead.
sure. So just to orient everyone to the project. So the street edge right here, I don't know if you can see my cursor, is the frontage of the lot. And then the driveway is along this side. And the lot has sort of a trapezoidal shape at the front. And then it's more or less rectangular toward the back. And this area here that has sort of the orange hatch to it shows where on the roof the new portions of roof dormer are proposed. And then you can see it over here in the isometric view. So basically there's 2 existing dormers on the roof today. And this dormer on this side exists, but to create headroom on the stair, we want to bring this small gable wall, the dormer, flush in the same plane as the wall below. So the wall along the stair can go smoothly up. And then this area of new roof, we would call a shed roof just because it's simple and has a single pitch to it, is new dormer. And it extends to this corner so that, again, we can have headroom as we come up the stair. And so if we skip ahead, so this is a plot plan, and I took the liberty of just turning it so it's the same as the plan that we were looking at here first. So the street edge is down here, and you can see the footprint of the house today, front steps leading down to grade and the sidewalk there. our driveway on this side. And so it's along the left edge that we're a little bit closer to the lot line than might be allowed today if you were going to build this house today. But we're working with an existing non-conforming condition of sorts where we're closer to that side lot line than we would be allowed to build today. And now to create usable living space in the attic of the existing house, we need a modest dormer just to give us headroom on that stair. So I'll skip ahead to the plan. So these are just existing plans. So Kamali and his family live on the second floor of this existing two-family home. And so you come up the stairs to get into their unit. So now we're on the second floor. And then this is the attic. So these are the plans that are here today. No proposed changes on these plans. So you come up the stair and you're in their floor of the two-family. There's an existing back stair today, which leads up to the attic. It's a little tight, to put it diplomatically, I guess. And then, so this is the proposed plan where we're proposing a new stair to follow just on top of the existing stair. So we have the existing stair that comes up into the unit, and then this is the proposed stair here. And so now we're up on the third level, the existing attic. And this is the existing stair coming up. And this is the footprint here of the new dormer that allows you the headroom just to get up onto that floor. And then we've got, pardon me, a bathroom that's almost ensuite to this proposed bedroom, and a living room upstairs, pardon me, and then a laundry area and home office. So the proposed bath and the proposed home office, these are within the existing gable dormers, with the gables facing the side yard on this side and facing the side yard here. And then, pardon me, this is the new proposed dormer here that's getting you up so you can get up onto that top floor without banging your head. And I'll zoom in just a little bit here to talk a little bit more about the dormer. The existing dormer, that gable dormer on the left, stops here where that dashed line is. And then this fine, slender portion is where we're just picking up that gable and bringing it into alignment with the floor below. And then if I zoom out here, we can look at the elevations here. So these are existing elevations. This is the front elevation of the house today, and this is a right elevation, which has no change to it. And then this is the back elevation of the house. And then this is where the new work is. So this is on the left side elevation of the house. And I'll zoom in on that a little bit here. So this area that has a crosshatch on it is showing the new portions of walls. So again, this was basically the existing dormer that I'm outlining here, but it's brought forward as we're looking at this wall to be stacked vertically above the existing wall. And then
how much further is that brought forward?
Approximately a foot. In fact, exactly 12 inches.
12 inches, okay.
And then I can switch to, this gives you a view of the front of the house today. So that, gives you some idea of the house. And that's the rear. So this is from the neighbor's yard. So that house right there is actually the neighbor's house. And now as I turn, we're looking at Kamali's house here. So you can see the existing dormer today. So we're repeating that same shape and just bringing it 12 inches forward as you were asking.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to give the floor back to you.
Okay, the neighbor whose yard you were in on the left-hand side of the house, have you talked with, or has the applicant talked to the neighbors about what the plans are and how it would change, and kind of given them this kind of a overview of the proposal?
I'll turn the floor over to Kamali on that.
Okay,
I have not, but I went to high school. I grew up with the homeowners, so I can talk to them. I won't speak for if they'll have any problems with it. I would be surprised if they did, but we are good friends.
okay, and they have been given notice that this is going on as required. What about your neighbors to the other side? Have you spoken with them?
I mean, not formally about exactly what's going on. Again, I have a good relationship with both sides. So I wouldn't expect a problem, but I can talk to them following this.
Julia, is there anyone else that wanted to be heard on this hearing today?
There aren't any hands up.
No hands up? Okay. And so basically, we are assuming that your neighbors have had notice of this because of the statutory requirements, but you haven't talked to them about what you're planning on doing per se?
No, not in detail. Only that I'm hoping to modify the attic, kind of in a general sense, not in a really formal sense. They definitely didn't have any concerns. We've been working on this for well over a year, or kind of keeping the process moving. So it's definitely been spoken about at some point with both of them.
It's something you've talked to over the time that you've been planning it?
Yeah.
Okay, just wondering if they, so I'm assuming they haven't looked at plans or anything, but you've told them what your idea is and what it is that you want?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask, I want the back stairs, let's see, you said it was a little tight on the back stairway, and that's why you were elongating the front stairway that goes between the two apartments. Could you tell me a little bit more about that? Is it something that you had looked into, perhaps extending upstairs to the attic, or just looking to see that there were possibilities looked at that might not have necessitated the gable, the shed, excuse me?
Sure,
The shed
absolutely. Yeah, so the challenge with the stair is that the stair, were one to try and build it today, it wouldn't meet with current building codes and standards. And so to begin with, it's not as wide as would be required today. We're still able in new construction work to create triangular stair treads, often referred to as winders. But today, even the narrowest edge of the winder would need to be at least 3 inches long. And so the idea is that we're maintaining a uniform distance as you're walking at what they call the 12-inch walk line. So 12 inches from the inside stair as you come up the stair. And the headroom might be less than ideal. And if we look at, bear with me a moment here.
So you could have an odd looking bump on the house in the back instead of having, a shed dormer in the middle of the house.
Oh, I see. So if I follow you now. So if we go back to the floor plans here, so part of the design exercise, if you will, is trying to create a functional floor plan. And so where we want to have living space in half of the plan, and then we want the privacy of a bedroom in another portion of the plan. And this is more generous and more suited to living space. And it's also in the tradition and sort of pattern of your typical home, the public rooms, if you will, living rooms, sitting rooms, front parlors, et cetera, are typically along the front of the house. So having, a living room facing the street makes more sense. And then in the privacy of toward the rear of the lot, to have the bedroom toward the back certainly makes more sense. And then the other part of it as well is where we're looking for an opportunity to create a new code compliant set of stairs in a part of the existing floor plan that doesn't take away too much from the living space. So the mental shortcut, if you will, is the best place for a new stair is directly above an existing stair. So by placing this new stair directly above the existing stair, there's really minimal loss of usable living space on the first floor, creating a new code compliant stair to the second floor. Whereas in other portions of the plan, it certainly would have been more of a hardship, especially when we look at the back right corner of the house. This is the existing kitchen today. And as I'm sure you're aware, kitchens and bathrooms can be some of your most expensive renovations. So where the homeowners were hoping to increase their living space in the attic with minimal pressure on the first floor, or pardon me, second floor living spaces, it seemed to us that this was the best choice for the new stair location. And then given this being the stair, you're coming up into this part of the floor plan closest to the street, then where we want a living room for Kamala and Claudia to enjoy their family and being together with their children, this is a good spot for a living room. And then this is more private in the back.
Okay. Well, I'm trusting there's still nobody out in Zoom land that wants to be heard. Okay. So I'm going to close the evidentiary portion of the hearing and rule on this right now. It's sometimes tough to get expand into a two-family house where you've got an attic, and the houses are fairly close together on Houston Avenue at this particular area of Houston Avenue. So I think that this proposal has been put together with some care and showing that even the shed that we have, the additional shed that we have for the top of that stairs, is kept on a lower plane and all, and it certainly makes sense to have the stairs there rather than overusing an existing stairs in the back that is not up to code. And having spent many years in a very old house that had that wedge kind of staircase, woo, you always had to be careful. You couldn't go down there early in the morning and not be half awake. You had to be all the way awake. So I certainly understand that. So I'm going to rule that this is going to be a de minimis extension into the previously non-conforming area, and that in that people have had notice, but they've chosen not to come here. It kind of gives some tacit approval of that. And so I am going to rule for a special permit for this project that you've got here, and it seems like a good thing. It'll add value to the house, add value to the neighborhood as well. So congratulations on getting your special permit. It'll take a little bit of time for me to write a decision on this, at which point Julia will be filing it with our town clerk, and there's a 20-day appeal period. where even though nobody's here today, somebody could appeal the decision on this before you could get a building permit. But once that time is up, then you can get your building permit and start with your renovation. So congratulations.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Oh,
Happy
thank you
New
so
Month.
much. Oh, thank you.
You
So
look very
great.
happy. I'm glad.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Have a great day. Thanks, Keith. Thanks, everybody.
My pleasure. Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
And let's see.
All right, so
Next one I
Yeah.
think was North on Road. Nope, that's not.
38 Barton's Lane.
Okay. Okay, we're going to start our slightly late 4:15 hearing. I think the Barrys are not unmuted yet, and they might want to be able to be heard. I see their attorney is here. So upon the application of Paul and Suzanne Barry and by their attorney Ned Cochran at 38 Barton's Lane dated February 17th, 2023, seeking a special permit to build a 15 by 14 one-story garage addition to the left front of the existing structure. The property is located in a Residence C zoning district. This garage addition would be built at a distance of 9 feet from the left side lot line, where 10 are normally required by section 6C1 of the Milton zoning bylaw. And with the file, we have some thought plans of what is currently there and what is going to be added to, or what is proposed to be added there. We have some architectural drawings and renderings of what the home will look like from outside, what it currently looks like and what it will look like from outside. We have letters from neighbors in support of the application. We have them from Thomas and Don Flynn at 15 Clark Road, Judy Corey and Robert Corey at 43 Barton's Lane, which is, well, you can tell me where they are when we start talking. We have another one from Diana Downey on 59 Lawrence Road, and one from Lynn Hoy on 46 Barton's Lane, along with David Hoy. Okay, so I'll turn it all over to the applicants and their attorney.
Good evening, Jenny, how are you?
I'm fine. How about you?
I'm terrific. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm with Suzanne and Paul Barry, and we think a de minimis application for a minor adjustment to a setback. And if I can share screen, run quickly through a couple of slides. The first, that's not the right one. Okay. Is a front-on view of the premises. This is the existing small cape house in 38 Barton's Lane. The left lot line, I think, is on the other side of this arborvitae hedge. But this corner of the house here is 9.2 feet off of this left lot line. Plan is to put a new garage in this location. And because there's a slight skew to the house side of the house relative to the lot line, the edge of the new location of the edge of the garage is now going to be 9 feet. So there's a very slight loss of a couple of inches in setback that are buffered by this fairly thick row of arborvitae's. But
Are those
Uh,
arborvitae's going to be remaining during the construction and after the construction?
yes.
No, that's not true. No.
Actually,
Oh, I'm sorry.
those have been removed. There's some new plantings on our side of the house. But there's also a fence. I think it's like a white 8-foot fence
That's right.
that has replaced the arborvitae's that the abutter has put up.
The abutter put up the fence?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So the arborvitae's are theirs?
They just removed the arborvitae's and they put up a fence.
Okay. And
That must have been
Wait.
before you purchased.
Yeah, we purchased the home in September of 2022.
oh,
So prior to our ownership, the hedges were removed and the fence was installed. And the fence runs the entire length of the property,
mhm,
almost all the way to the back, not quite to the back.
mhm,
There's a pool on the abutter's property.
okay. So just wanting to understand a little bit, is the fence on the lot line, like right on the lot line? So you'd have, your 9 feet
I
next to the
think the
garage?
fence was depicted on the plot plan that was prepared.
Let me look at
And
Yeah,
so-
I apologize for that. I pulled up this image from Google Earth today to show sort of the existing view and didn't realize that the
Yeah, I was a little startled. It looked a little different from my
on the
drive-by.
left had been changed. That's my fault. I apologize for that.
Okay, so,
So I think the fence is very, very close to the lot line. I think as it works its way to the back of the property, the fence might actually encroach on our property, but I think the measurements are reflected in the actual property line.
yeah, the fence, okay, now I'm looking at the fence, it does encroach.
Right.
Um,
You can see that.
so you might want to talk to your attorney about that, or just keeping that open for the perpetuity. There's very simple ways of doing that without having to go crazy, so you might want to talk with him about that. Okay.
So if I-
So one of the things I did want to say is that where we're putting the garage is actually, it used to be the garage. And the previous owners put a bedroom in there, so we wanted the garage back. But we just wanted to move it forward a bit.
Okay. Okay, anything else to add?
So I think what would be helpful, and it's a fairly simple addition as you can see from the plans. Let me just change the size of this. So the letters that you received, this is the property at 38 Barton's Lane. The Flynn's live here on the corner of Lawrence and Barton's at 15 Clark. They actually front on Clark Road.
Mm-hmm.
So they're here, catty corner across the street. The Downies are here at 59 Lawrence, which is again straight across the street, but the frontage is Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
The Careys are here at 43,
Mm-hmm.
which is catty corner across from property. And the Hoyles are here at 46, immediately next door. This property, I think, Suzanne and Paul, you had said that this property may be for sale.
Yes.
So
Yes.
currently, that ownership is changing hands. There's no direct response from existing owners relative to the request for letters of support.
Yes, but we did meet the new owner. He's purchasing the property, I believe, at the end of this week. We did meet him and informed him of what we were doing. And he expressed his support.
Okay. Excellent. So they knew that they could attend to today's meeting if they were so inclined?
Yes, yes, he was informed.
Okay, very good. Is there anybody in Zoom land, Julia, that we need to listen to right now?
There are no hands up.
Okay, well, I'm going to close the evidentiary portion of our hearing and decide this here and now. This is kind of restoring the home to where it was before with the garage. Maybe it's a teensy bit bigger than what's there now by 2 inches. That is something that you know, has to be followed for the size of cars today and so forth. There being general agreement with the neighborhood that this is going to be good for the neighborhood. It seems a de minimis amount of dimension for us to worry overly about, and I think that this is going to be helpful for the Barrys to have a garage. It's when you don't have one, you miss it. People forget about that. And I am hereby voting 1-0 that you get your special permit for this, and I wish you many years of happiness on Barton's Lane.
Great.
Thank you.
Would it be
Again,
helpful, Jenny, if I produced a draft of a decision for your review?
sure, that would be helpful. Make it a
Okay.
little faster. And so Attorney Cochran will be able to tell you what you need to do to, you know, record with the Registry of Deeds to keep your deed up to date and legal and so forth. And congratulations on your new garage.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Neil.
Thank
take
you.
care.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes.
Okay, I'm waiting to see. I'm not sure who of these people.
People in the audience?
This, I know is a Paul, so I'm just gonna let Paul over. There's no last name, but I'll let him in. Oh, and a Kevin.
Hi, this is Paul and Deb. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank
Okay.
you. Okay, we do have to wait for 5 minutes to make sure that people that had noticed that this starts at 4:45 actually can get here at 4:45 and participate. So
Okay.
we'll relax for a few minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
This one started at 4:30, Jenny, at 490
This
Blue
was
Hill Ave.
4:30. Oh, I jumped one. I
Oh.
jumped one. Whoops.
All right. Well, we
Thanks
can
for
wait.
keeping me on target. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Don't have to wait. Okay. Okay. Then we can start as soon as I find the. Okay. I'm going to call the 4:30 hearing to order on the application of Deborah and Paul Breitenbecker of 490 Blue Hill Avenue dated February 8th, 2023 for a special permit to build a 12 foot by 24.5 foot 2-story sunroom in the area of the existing deck at the rear of their home. The property is located in a Residence C zoning district. This addition would be built at a distance of 8.2 feet from the left and 8.3 feet from the right side property line, when 10 feet are normally required by sections 6C1 of the Milton zoning bylaws. And in the file, I have the the application for the application for the building permit. I have a denial letter from Mr. Prondak, was our building inspector. We miss him all. The description of the project. So this is describing, I'll read this aloud. The proposed project is to remove an existing 12 by 24 foot deck and stairs and replace it with a 2-story 12 by 24 foot by 8-inch, an 8-inch sunroom addition. This would include a 42-inch by 72 foot. No, that doesn't
It's
sound
meant
right.
to be inch. I'm sorry. It's a
Okay.
typo.
Landing and stairs off the first floor. See attached plans. Both the first floor and second floor would be open to the house and connected to the heating system of the house. The second floor will function as a sunroom solarium area with more than 1/2 of the roof being glass. The first floor will function as a formal living room because the current floor plan of the house does not have a real living room. See attached plan. And then we have a lot of the plans of the sunroom, but I'm not finding, and didn't find earlier, a lot of how this is going to look on the house. I don't have any schematics of that, and it does make it kind of hard to visualize without that. We do have some pictures of the current, we have a plot plan showing that there is a funny triangular lot here that necessitates the, because of the tapering of the backyard, it's difficult to put anything there without getting into the side setbacks as you have. We have a picture of the back of the house showing the first floor to be about, in the back anyway, about a story up from the backyard. With an addition, it appears to be that is probably going to be taken away. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I'd like to understand a little bit more about how this is going to be. I will say right up front that last month or the month before, we had another application before us from the same Brady built sunrooms, and and the problem that we had with that was that there weren't any drawings, conceptual drawings to show how the sunroom and the addition would be married together, what it would look like to the neighbors from the rear, and that was a problem. We don't have that here again today, so I do anticipate that being a little bit of a problem for trying to understand exactly what is going to be next door to your neighbors. So anyway, I see that we have, let's see, I'm assuming that Paul and Deborah.
Yes. correct.
Hello. Oh, by the way, my name is Virginia Donahue King. I'm a member of the Board of Appeals and the zoning administrator, and I will be constituting the board at this hearing. And Kevin is,
I'm the chief designer for Brady Built Sunrooms, representing Paul and Deborah.
okay. Okay, so whoever would like to
Sure,
flesh this out a little bit, that would be great.
no problem. So Paul and Deborah Breitenbecker hired us to replace the existing 24-foot deck on the back side of the house. As you had indicated, 12 feet of that existing deck is a 3-season room right now, both of which are in really bad shape and need to be replaced. So we will be removing those to accommodate the new 12 by 24 foot 8 2-story addition with a 42-inch by 72-inch landing and stairs. The first floor, as you had indicated as well,
Could you
is going,
repeat for me again that the landing, what was that again?
The landing is going to be 42 inches by 72 inches, landing and stairs.
Landing and stairs, and where is that located?
That's going to be on the front of the addition,
Meaning the
right in front of
back?
right in the back side of the addition, in front of the sliding glass door that's shown on the first floor of there's a three-dimensional drawing of the room in the engineering package that we gave you.
Can you tell me what, how that might be named, or numbered so that I can pull that out?
Yes, sure. So the three-dimensional drawing is number 1 and number 2, front left isometric view and front right isometric view. It does not show the landing and the stairs, but if you want to go to page, 16, which shows side elevation, that does show the landing and the stairs.
Okay, let me just pull that out. So on 16, I'm looking at the right side of the house.
Yep, and you see the
That's
stairs
right,
coming
okay.
down with a landing at the top, which would be in front of the sliding glass door.
Okay, let me. So that would be, okay, we got the sliders. And so that, okay, so that deck is right in front of that.
Yep. Yeah, and it's just a landing big enough to go in front of the sliding glass door, so it meets code.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, now the first floor is going to function as a living room because there is no living room in this house. It's a very small house. The square footage is only the footprint of footprint of the house is only 979 square feet. So they're desperately in need of additional space. During the permitting process, we needed a new plot plan because there really wasn't an existing one that was valid. So when we got a new plot plan, we realized that it was a highly unusual shaped lot, as you can see on the new plot plan. And the building commissioner, after reviewing it, had discovered that it was a dimensionally pre-existing non-conforming structure. So when we designed the addition, we had designed it to come in from the sides of the house on the back so that it would not go any further, closer to the side lot lines than the existing house does. So we designed it to come in 0.8 feet from the left-hand side, as you can see on the plot plan, and 4.8 feet from the right-hand side, so that it is not any closer to the lot line than the existing houses. And then under as Joe had, the building commissioner had indicated, this requires under section 4 of the zoning regulations, it requires a special permit for a non-conforming pre-existing building, and that to show that it's not more detrimental to the neighborhood or what currently exists. And so we designed it to match the look of the house. It's going to be sided with the same siding material as the existing house. It's going to
Now,
look. Yep.
I'm sorry,
No,
how
sure.
is that going to work in as much as the siding? It looks to me, wait a minute. It looks to me that we have,
So if you look at the isometrics, page 1 and page 2 of the three-dimensional drawings.
yep,
Okay, everything that is not an operable window, all the solid sections on the side and all the solid sections underneath of the windows are going to be sided with the same type of siding that's on the house.
okay. Could you tell me
So-
what would be on the roof?
On the roof is going to be, there will be a metal roof above that area on the second floor that will be insulated, and you would not be able to see that roof from the ground because it's going to be up on the second floor area.
Is that the crosshatched area?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And we showed the plan to all of the existing abutters. And Paul and Deborah went around and spoke with everybody, showed them the plan, explained exactly what they were going to do. And we have a sheet that you should have in your package that was signed off by every single immediate abutter. saying that they
dear.
were in favor of the project and that they were shown the drawings, and Paul and Deborah explained to them what was going on, and they all agreed that it would be substantially better looking and more elegant than what is existing right now.
I'm looking for the sign off from the neighbors.
It was emailed, I don't know the exact date it was emailed, but it was emailed subsequently after it was filed. Here's the signature page with all of the neighbor signatures on it.
Okay.
And this is 2 Landon Road, 8 Landon Road,
Hold
480
on.
Blue Hill
Oh,
Avenue.
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
No, I don't have that. If you could hold it up for me, to try to ascertain some addresses there.
Sure.
Jenny, we went through and actually individually spoke with each one of those, and that's how we got all the signatures.
Okay, so, who?
And then we had sent out packets with everything prior to that to each one of the abutters.
So we had, just seeing, on the plot plan, did we have, Jason and Leslie McCurry on that?
Correct.
Absolutely. Yeah,
480.
480 Blue Hill Avenue, correct.
Okay, and Paulette Cooper and Audrey Forbes from 2 Landon.
Absolutely.
Hansi Eugene, 8 Landon.
Yes,
The Cole family on Craig Street.
absolutely. 17 Craig, and we also got 23 Craig.
Is that the Krista Kloppenstein and Elizabeth Staunberry?
It is correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Now, could you tell me again, you said that the room is going to be tapering towards the back. It's a little bit hard to see. Could you tell me? So
If you look at the plot plan,
the plot
moment.
plan, yep.
yep, you'll see where that the yard tapers very sharply to a point in the back, and the addition is coming off of the back of the house. But
Mhm.
the way that we designed it is we brought it in 4 feet 8 inches from the right-hand side, so that it wasn't any closer to the lot line than the existing house is now. And we brought it in 0.8 feet from the lot line on the left-hand side, so it was no closer to the house, the lot line than the house is right now.
So it's not following the line of the house on that right-hand side of the house?
Nor right
It's
or
several-
left-hand side. No, it's
Right, I
stepped
can
in
see,
some,
yeah.
so we made absolutely sure that we were not expanding on that, the non-conformity into the side yard setback.
So basically, we're extending the non-conformity, but not increasing the non-conformity.
Correct.
So it's kind of an increase, but okay. And if you could, Julia, it doesn't have to be for tonight, but if you could email me that listing of the abutters that agreed to it, that would be
I
great.
just went through my email and I don't think I received that either, so I can give you my email, Kevin, and if you want to send that over to me.
Yeah, I can have Sherry do it immediately,
Okay.
no problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that will be important for the legality of everything.
Absolutely.
Okay, is there anybody out there that wants to be heard tonight on this application?
I don't have any hands up.
Okay, then I'm going to close the evidentiary portion of this hearing and deliberate on this right now. It's certainly, special permits are needed and made for lots that are as strangely put together as this lot was.
That was putting it nicely.
Yes, it's you wouldn't be able to put any kind of an addition on to improve your house and that could be tasteful with with the neighborhood, et cetera. So I do see that there's a hardship in not being able to make an addition onto your house. This is a rather big addition, but I certainly understand the sensitivity that you had in trying to keep it no more unconforming than it already, the house already is. So we're just extending the unconformity rather than creating a new nonconformity. So in as much as the neighbors have, all of the abutters have signed off on it, and that this being a very unusually sized as well as shaped lot, I think that it would be the right thing to do to grant the special permit for this particular application. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And what you would, I will be writing a decision on this. It will take a couple of weeks. Once that's done, Julia will be filing that with the town clerk, which starts a 20-day appeal period. So once that 20-day appeal period is up, you can pull, the building permit can be pulled for the project. And in as much as it seems like everybody in the neighborhood is in favor of this, that should be not anything but a 20-day delay. So, and you would also want to make bring a copy of this to the and have it filed with the Registry of Deeds to update your deeds so that they know that this is a legal addition, and you'll never have to pull it down then. So congratulations, and enjoy.
Thank you, Jenny.
the summer.
Appreciate it. Julia, you'll have the signed neighbors letter by first thing in the morning.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
take care.
Okay.
All right, bring Marion over. And George Mandel.
Oops. Okay, how we do? Oh. Well, we're running a little late, so I am going to call to order the hearing upon the application of George Mandel by his attorney Marion McKettrick at 4 Hawthorne Road dated March 6, 2023 for a special permit to remove the existing gambrel style roof and rebuild a full third level gable style roof. The property is located in a Residence C zoning district. This roof addition will make the home a 3.5 story structure when only 2.5 stories are allowed by Section 5A1 height regulations, which will be built at a distance of 11.9 feet from the rear property line when 18.3 are normally required by Section 6D1 rear yards of the Milton zoning bylaw. We have in the file the application and the denial letter from the building inspector. We have a letter from Attorney McKettrick explaining what the proposal is and why it's requested. We have a plot plan showing the locus and, well, actually showing just the locus. And then we have another map showing where this resides in the bigger picture of that part of Milton. We have architectural sketches of the existing front elevation and side elevations and rear elevations. And the proposed elevations as well from all 4 sides. We have some architectural drawings of what would be held in each in the new section that will be proposed to be built at the 3rd level. And a lot of other building things that show things where the pitched roofs will be and so forth, and how the rooms are put together. So we do have a lot to look at that. And so what I'd like to do is turn this over to Attorney McKettrick to let us know what her clients are hoping to do and why.
Okay, thank you. I'm Mary McKettrick and I represent the applicant. We've been working on this for a while. This is a proposal to expand the third floor, the attic floor of this house. And basically the means of expansion will be third floor dormers with an extended dormer in the front and a new dormer in the rear. And the result of doing those additions creates an extension of existing nonconformities because this house is already on a 6,252 square foot lot, which is non-conforming. It was built in 1919. Doesn't have to exist. It's legal as is. But when anything is extended, that's considered an extension of the nonconformity under Section 4 of the zoning bylaw, and a special permit is required. And the standard for a special permit is would be no substantial detriment to the surrounding neighborhood and no derogation to the zoning bylaw. What the applicant is planning is to add a bedroom to the third floor and a full bathroom. Basically would be potentially at least a master bedroom and a bathroom. And the purpose of this is to add living space. It's not adding an apartment, but the applicant believes or is planning on kind of joining households with his son and daughter-in-law who live in California, I think, at the moment. And that this would provide more of a private bedroom and bathroom space for each part of the family. This is his adult son. So although the design does technically create a 3.5-story structure, it's really, I think, important to note that it does not exceed 35 feet in height. So when you look at the 18 pages of architectural plans from all sides, you'll see that although the house looks different with the dormers do fit in with the original architecture. And then if you were to walk around in this neighborhood, you would see other houses. Not every house is the same. There's a lot of variety, but you would see some other houses of similar height and some somewhat similar designs. There's a lot of variation. So over the years, George Mendel has lived in this house for quite a while. He's done a lot of improvements. It's an historic structure, and he's always tried to make the house more beautiful from in the interior as well as the exterior. And these changes, he feels, are in keeping with the size and design of this house and of nearby homes, and will improve the marketability of the home, won't detract from neighboring homes, but it will also provide space. He's single, his wife is no longer living, but space so that he can join households with his son and daughter-in-law. I'm going to ask George to speak to contact with neighbors because he has spoken to his neighbors and he can explain what their reaction has been. So he's here. I think he might need, yeah.
I don't know why you don't have a picture of me up there. I don't see one, but it's okay. Maybe it's a good thing. So as to speaking to the neighbors, I wasn't sure. I have spoken directly with several of my neighbors, the closest. I'm on a corner, so I have one behind me, Kim McLaren and Ray Dauphiné. And on my other side, I have Jane Dawson. And I shared plans with each of them. When they got the notice from the town, they go, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" And so then I had to explain to them that, no, I'm not going up another floor, really. I'm just kind of pushing the roof up a little. And I really wanted to do it originally with like a dormer to add a bathroom, but the zoning required me to increase the ceiling height to 7 feet. I think 7 feet minimum for the whole area. So I have spoken directly to those neighbors. There's no one in my neighborhood that I know of who has voiced any opposition. Most of them have said, "Good luck with your project. That looks like a great project." I think the notice went out to my whole street. I was unclear of who it all went to, and Marion advised me to send out a form letter And I didn't do that. I was a little unclear on who was getting it and how many letters I should send out. But I have shared plans with 4 neighbors, my immediate neighbors on each side. And they say that they have no opposition to it. My neighbor across the street, Dan Nuri, and his wife, Mary, Mary, they have different last names. And then across the street to my right, I have a 2-unit property on the corner, and I shared plans with them. They were just interested. They are professional architects. They do commercial things, and they're friends. And, so I actually got the notice from a friend down the street. I didn't get a copy, but my friend from like down the block said, "Hey, George, I got this copy." And I go, "Oh, nice to know." So then we have a Facebook group on the street. So I just posted, if you have any concerns or if you'd like to see the plans, please let me know. And I haven't had any concerns listed from anybody. Without going on too much, that's it.
Okay, I'm just looking at the elevations, and I just noticed that there is no chimney showing on the proposed elevations. I'm just wondering, because it kind of looks like it almost could be covered. And I'm just wondering what happened to that.
That's perceptive. I appreciate that. The chimney is coming out. It is no longer functional. Back in the day, when we bought this house, they split the chimney, they put the furnace up through the chimney, one side of it. And our result was our fireplace didn't have much draw. Eventually, my kids left the house, they grew up, and so I got to have a gas fireplace insert, and I don't need to put it up through the chimney. So the plan is where the bathroom is going is very close to where the chimney is. They will take the chimney out at the 3rd level. And the only thing that needs to vent out is the gas insert. And I understand that can vent horizontally. And it doesn't have to go up through the roof.
Okay.
So there will be no chimney on top of the roof anymore.
So what now, I did drive to the neighborhood today, and I noticed that who is your neighbor to the rear of the house? I noticed that the land goes down somewhat, so that house there is going to be looking up at a much taller house. It already is looking at a tall house, but it's going to look at a taller house. And I'm wondering if you talk to those neighbors and who they might be, and wondering.
That's on Elliott Street, and that is my neighbor Kim McLaren and Ray Dauphiné. And the house is supposed to go up 1 foot, really, as I understand it, the roof line. There will be more windows on the back of the house, but it will look different, certainly, than it does now. The truth is, I rehabilitated the 3rd floor in 2014 with a limited permit. I didn't move any walls or things, and I got a limited permit. I upgraded the wiring, the fire code, the windows, the insulation. But then to add a bathroom was, another deal, and originally another step. And originally I hoped this would be a smaller project, but because of zoning requirements, the ceiling height in particular, I needed to raise the whole roof line, and it will still end up, as I understand it, less than 35 feet. So it goes up about a foot from over where it is. There are also trees in between the houses, so that in a sense, the 3rd floor, part of the appeal is you're up almost like in a treehouse. And from their side, there's a lot of screening, and they have windows and shades, and they created a master bathroom on their 2nd floor within the last few years. And so they have frosted glass, as as is sensible, that's what we have in our bathrooms.
I'm wondering, what is the square footage that we're talking about, since we're looking at this as a 3-story addition rather than a 2.5, which is what it is right now. And so I'm wondering, just the massiveness of a 3-story house that doesn't taper too much at the top. I'm wondering what we're looking at as far as square footage compared to the floor below at the 4-foot height.
Well, the zoning code, as I understand it, requires a maximum of 60% on the 3rd floor. So, I mean, to me, you know, it sounds like, oh my God, 3 full stories, but really the whole house is going up a foot from where it is now.
Well,
And there
I
is living
understand you're
space.
talking about the height of the house, and that is not an issue. What is an issue is if the 3rd floor is something more than forgetting what the number is right now, a percentage of the floor below it.
67%, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
So are we saying that the square footage at a height of 4 feet and over is somewhere around 2/3, or what is that figure?
The architect developed the plans according to the existing building code. And as I off the top of my head, not actually looking at the PDF, the limit is, I think it's 2/3, 67%. That is the tradition in Milton for a 3rd floor.
Correct.
So-
And I'm wondering, what I want to be able to do is to be as close to his 2.5-story building as we can be, so that we can give you extra room up there on the 3rd floor, but that it would be somewhere around 2/3 of the 2/3 of what the square footage of the floor below is at that height. So otherwise, we're going to have massive 3-story buildings that don't really go together. So what I want to know is how far away from 2/3 is it, so that I can make a ruling on if it's something that is de minimis, if it's something more than that. And so that is a figure that I need to use.
Well, as I understand it, it is, without looking at the PDF, I'd have to open that up, and that has been presented. It does not exceed the maximum of 67%. The perimeter of the house doesn't change. The foundation and really the walls of the
understand that.
house will stay in line with the lower floors. We're not jutting out any. So
I
we're just,
understand that, but the point being is that if you were to just put a 3rd floor on, that was the same footprint of the floor below, that's a 3-story building. And we don't allow it. It's just part of the building code. We don't allow it. So what we're trying to do is to see how much different. We have a 3rd level. It doesn't mean it's a full story though. So we're trying to look at what that level is compared to the floor below it. And so what is counted is the square footage at a level of 4 feet and above. So anything that is less than 4 feet, so that if you have a sloping wall, it's not going to count of that percentage except for where it is at 4 feet. So so it's a little bit different of a measurement, I think, than you're talking about. And so for me to make a determination, I do need to know that.
I think George does understand that. This plan, I'm not the architect and I'm not an engineer. This plan, this proposal describes the end result as a 3.5-story structure. The only question is the 3rd floor right now a full floor, or is it technically a half-story? That's the corresponding measurement that you're talking about. It can't be more than 2/3 of the area of the 2nd story.
Correct.
So can you answer that, George? Is your existing 3rd floor considered a 3rd floor? Did Joe Prondak explain that? Because I think what you're doing is, in order to get the 7-foot height, you have to add less than a half story. That's why it's 3.5 stories. and you have an existing house design that already has a third story, I think. Are you clear on that, or do we really need to get
Well,
more?
as Joe put it to me, he said, you have an existing bedroom. When I rehabbed that space in 2014, he says, you want to bring it up to code? I said, yes. So he says, fine. I wasn't moving any walls, so I got a limited permit. So in terms of, do I have a 2.5-story building? I have a bedroom on the 3rd floor now. It is what most people would call an attic space, but it has been insulated, fire code, wired. As far as the minimum space, the architect is the one who ensured that this design is within the code. That's the whole point. He designed it in concert with Joe Prondak. He said, you know, this is something that he does. He's an expert. That's what he does. And this has been designed to fit the existing building codes within the requirements of a special permit. So the space, whether you measure it vertically or horizontally, 4 feet, 3 feet, or 7 feet, the ceilings will be 7 feet as required by code, but it meets the code requirement on a 3rd floor of not more than 67% of the floor below, or both floors below, because this house is obviously the floors are just stacked on each other, and they are the same, although they're organized differently. The 1st and 2nd floors, they are roughly the same amount. And I just I'm honestly, I'm a little confused myself, because the architect is the expert, and he is the one who designed. I'm trying to look at panel 17 and answer your question. If it's 4 feet and above, you know, what space requirements are you adding? You know, so that all I know is that he designed it to be within code according to Milton's standards, along with Joe Prondak. And if I needed to, I'd have to call on the architect to explain that, but the plans are there. Again, I'm not a civil engineer or an architect. I'm a homeowner. So.
No, I
why
understand that.
why is it 2.5? Why is it 3.5 stories, George, rather than 3 stories? Do you know that? I mean, I can't answer that question either. And unfortunately, you know, Joe Prondak is not with us anymore, but the building code and the zoning bylaw exist, and they can be reviewed with the architect to explain this if necessary. You don't have an answer to that, right?
I'm not an expert, so no, I would prefer not to. All I can say is, again, to the best of my knowledge, it was designed within the required code. That's the whole reason for me to hire an architect and pay the amount of money I paid.
Well, and the reason Joe Prondak reviews these applications before they come to the Board of Appeals is to determine what relief is required. So what he's saying is that you need a special permit to do this 3.5 story structure, and that this is an extension of a non-conforming structure. So I believe, but I don't know because I just don't have enough information here, that the non-conformity is partially the height with the attic, so-called attic, and that you had to raise that attic up to 7 feet in order to have the bathroom with this bedroom, and that creates a 3.5 story structure. It is correct, as Ginny points out. We don't allow 3.5 story structures. But the rule with an extension of a nonconformity is that in order to be given permission to do that, you need a special permit and not a variance, but you need zoning relief. And so the basis is described in Joe Prondak's letter. But I guess what I'm asking here is, in order to make a decision, there's not opposition from neighbors, but maybe the hearing officer needs a little bit more of an explanation from your architect. And maybe what we're talking about is returning with that information, because I think we've gone as far as we can to explain it here. Am I correct? Is that what you feel? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that if I had the figure that we have of what, how it compares to the second floor in percentage at the critical point, that would make all the difference in the world.
And I think you need to know what the existing condition is. Existing condition being the house as is, you know, as a non-conforming structure. And I don't have that for the height. That correct? I mean, we need to know that
Well,
as well as the number you're talking about.
Well, I don't know if the survey
I'm
helps at
pres-
all, but we spent money to develop elevations. So the survey, whereas the building plans may show, and again, it's your call. The survey shows that we haven't exceeded, or where we are within the limits of height and the lot dimensions and the structure of the building. Just
the height doesn't appear to be a problem.
No, it's not.
The
It's,
denial letter does
Yeah.
not mention the height of it. It mentions height regulations, but that's as stories as opposed to how many feet high it is. So I'm not concerned about the actual height. I am concerned about the square footage as it could, the ratio from the third floor to the second floor.
yeah, that's a story, a question of, because we have two
Story.
rooms. One is 35 feet, the other is 2.5 stories. If
Mhm.
you have an existing structure that exceeds the 2.5 story limit, that's a pre-existing non-conforming structure, then it's possible that what you're doing here is extending that pre-existing non-conforming structure. In order to do the roof height that you need, it becomes a 3.5 story structure. There's just not quite enough information, and this is a difficult question to answer without a lot of more detail on that particular issue. Your architect should be able to provide the answer. So if there's space to continue this hearing to a future date, if you have a future date, then I would suggest that we simply get the information that's requested and we all have a clear understanding of what's being extended, what exists and what's
Mhm.
being extended, and what the actual measurement is. I know Joe Condeck looked at it. I'm sure he's right that it's 2.5, it becomes 3.5 stories. I just don't understand exactly what the mechanism, you know, what's causing the 3.5 stories and what are we extending up from? So what do you, George, would you be willing to, if we ask for an extension, can you work with that? With your architect?
Certainly, and I would feel more comfortable with the architect answering these questions because he's the expert and I'm not.
Yeah, and he could even
Mhm.
maybe you could ask him to zoom in for the continued hearing if necessary. And you know, we're not really depending on the building commissioner for this. We need an explanation of what got us to this point, what Joe Prondak used to determine this. And it's just not always obvious. The plot plan gives information on height, you're right. But it doesn't give information on the 2.5 stories versus 3.5 stories and how that was determined. So I would request that we be allowed to continue this. And maybe you have to announce a date. So can you find another date? Future date?
Oh
No.
dear, I didn't bring my calendar. I can go fetch it though.
Yeah,
Hold
problem
on,
is we
and-
do have to announce a date.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Want to
let
take a little
me-
break and
Yeah, let's take a few minutes and Crystal, Julia, sorry about that.
Okay.
If you could look and see, you know, what your schedule is like as well.
Yep.
And I assume that next week would be too early because we do have something scheduled next week.
But what, George, how quickly do you think you can confer with your architect and get this information? With
I
next-
don't, he's
yeah.
usually very responsive. Today is Tuesday. So
Yeah.
I should hear back from him within a day or two. So next week would be fine if there is an opening next week. He's, especially given where we are in the process, I'm sure he will be, my experience has been as he is very responsive, so I wouldn't
So-
expect anything
So
else.
why don't we try to do the continue the meeting until the 23rd at, let's see, we're scheduled through 5 o'clock, is that correct?
I'm just double checking here.
So if
that's-
it doesn't work out, we'll have to continue again, but I'd rather try. Seems like this is.
Yeah, if we can do it
information we can-
quickly and
we can get.
everybody's happy, that's a good thing.
Yep.
Okay,
We should be able to do it at 4:45 on the 23rd. We only have 3.
Oh, okay.
Great.
That's even better, isn't it?
that's
It's very
fine.
good for
And
me
the-
because I have another hearing then anyway, so, okay. Thank you.
On May 23rd. Okay.
Okay,
So we will adjourn this hearing and take it back up a week from today at 4:45.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I guess we will be jumping right in to the okay. I'm going to call to order the continued meeting on the application of the Chauvers to change their once two-family house back into a two-family house at 12 Morton Terrace. And since our last meeting on April 11th, we've had a fair amount of, well, hold on one second. I'm missing some things here. Okay, yep. The file has been added to rather significantly. Attorney McKettrick has submitted 2 more letters, one on the parking and a further one dated, the parking was May 1st, and the further one dated today that is about further argument for being allowed to have the two-family designation for this house again. Let's see, I've also had a letter from Joan Galtz, who lives at 50 West Side Road to the rear of the subject property. And from Allison Cooper and Joe Zachariah from 8 Morton Terrace, who is against the proposition as well. So what I'd like to do, okay, this is a little difficult, not knowing where to start today. The Morton Terrace neighbors that were against this had proposed an agreement that that was not accepted by the proponents, by the applicants. So, and I assume that you have this, Attorney McKettrick, from I believe Brian O'Halloran had put this forward as to resolving the issue that would like to go in the temporary in-law apartment route, which you know, would be following what is required of that temporary apartment bylaw. of course, if that were something that were to be entertained, that would change the scope of this particular application and would have to be reapplied for that. So that's not something that we could actually do today. But it was out there anyway, saying that perhaps that would be something that you would want to look into if you wanted to keep this for your kids, for the Chauvet's kids that wanted to live there, that would be something that would be possible. However, it's like I say, it's not in the scope of this particular application, so that would have to be reapplied for. So I think that I'm not sure if there's any people out there that do want to talk. I think what I would like to do is if Attorney McKettrick could go over the parking plan that was submitted. It does appear that there's adequate parking, not having to park on the street, although there's one parking spot that looks like it's in the front yard, and I'm not sure if that's a good spot, but anyway, it does look like there's room in the back. So if you would like to present that, I think that could be helpful.
Of course, I'd be happy to. I do want to run through my letter because I want to say, which I did at the outset in that letter, that we're not rejecting the proposal by the neighbors for compromise, which wasn't for for an in-law apartment. It was for a 4-year apartment permit. And in that sense, if we had zoning that allowed us to do that, it would have been a possible compromise, because these applicants do intend to stay in the house and they just want to have the apartment while they're living in the house. Maybe they'd like to have their children, the house would continue to be owned by the family as long as it is. If it were possible to do that, if we had zoning to do that, that would have been a nice way of compromising this whole issue. That would have, apparently, I think the neighbors suggesting that if the Chauvets are in the house, and they've certainly kept a really beautiful house in great condition, that would be satisfactory, and it's a pretty neighborly compromise in that sense. But we can't do it because we don't have zoning that allows us to do that. And I also agree, of course, with what our zoning administrator is telling us, which is that we didn't apply for a special permit, so we'd have to withdraw this application. And if it were available, a means to do that, we would have to reapply. So just to go back to the parking plan, because this was responding to the concerns that were expressed at the last hearing, which is that having this additional unit is going to overcrowd the street. People will be parking on the street. There was concern about blocking the gate at the end of Morton Terrace, and then we weren't completely sure what the function of that gate was and what it was to be used for. So the applicants did follow through and prepared a parking plan, and they, by the way, the amount of parking space in the front yard does not exceed the limitation on square footage in the front setback of parking. I'm not saying, good or bad otherwise, but it is legal from the standpoint of what our zoning bylaw permits. And the proposal for that one space in the front, just under the tree, is that it would be paved with grass pavers. So when there's no car parked there, the lawn, it would still have a grassy appearance. Then there's parking space in the driveway. A car would have to be moved in order for cars in the back to get out. And then in the rear, they show a parking space that could be created at the end of the driveway. And then what they also showed, and I actually wasn't aware that they had this, is that underneath the house, there are 2 parking spaces. This house was designed for a 2-family, and it was designed with 2 parking spaces. And so one of those parking spaces in addition would be available. And so the other one is currently used for storage, although they're not proposing taking it out and using it for this. I think it's practical to have one space for storage with 1 or 2 units in the house. But ultimately, what their parking design shows is a capability for parking 5 cars on this site, which is the maximum number of cars that you could park under the zoning bylaw. That number of parking spaces off-street exceeds any requirement in our bylaw for if this were a 2-family, if you were allowed to have this as an existing 2-family, The requirement in a C zone is only for one space per unit. This is a residence C district. For B and A districts, the parking requirement is 2 spaces for each unit. This parking plan also satisfies that requirement for a B or an A district. So, and in terms of, it's a driveway and one car parks behind the other and so forth. I mean, this is the type of parking we have all over Milton in 2-family houses. There's a longer driveway, and cars can park one behind the other. The driveway is big enough to do that. There is a gate. Currently, you see a wooden gate going across the driveway right now. That gate's on hinges and opens and can be kept open. I think the Chauvets put that in because they have a dog, but they don't have to use it. So their plan would be to hook the gate. They don't even have to take it out. They can just hook it open. The other features, they've designed the parking so that the lot will continue to look as beautiful as it does now. They've done, since they've moved into this house, they have updated the inside of the house and they have kept the outside in great condition. They have done landscaping. It's really quite beautiful and it will continue to be beautiful. The parking in the back would be parking. I guess currently they have pavers in the driveway, I think. So that's an existing condition. So what they've done to do these renderings is, I wouldn't know how to do this, but they apparently did. They showed the sort of superimposed pictures of parked cars on the type of plans that they're proposing. So you can see pretty well what it would look like. The other effort that they did was they did reach out and speak to the fire chief, and I believe their neighbor may have as well. So we actually, the Board of Appeals did receive an email, I think, directly from the fire chief, but what they told Danielle Chauvet was, what he said was, it's an emergency access for a secondary water source, which is the hydrant that's at the end of 12 Morton Terrace. And so it should be available if it's needed. And that's why the gate is there and it's not locked. And so the Chauvets asked if a no parking sign could be installed. The fire chief said he would contact the owner of the apartment building next door and ask for that. And the sign is already up. So they did follow through on those 2 requests. So that's the parking plan. Do you want me to go into my letter response, or would you rather, Ms. King, you want to have more discussion of that?
Of the parking, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think the parking has been addressed well.
Okay, so I know not everybody has read this letter, and I don't usually read letters. I'm going to kind of try to read most of it though, because I think
walk us through it.
it's kind of important. Whatever you decide, we're not happy with the fact that the neighborhood is, all kind of in different positions with this, some support, some don't. We want everybody to get along. We don't want anyone to be terribly unhappy, but we do feel there's some really good reasons why this perhaps could be allowed. So in any case, the owners have lived here since 2009. The house was constructed in 1928. That was before 1938 zoning bylaw was adopted. It's a 2-family home, kind of very nicely designed 2-family home. And in 2011, the applicants decided they wouldn't rent that second unit anymore because they had young children and they could see that they could really use the extra space from the other apartment. And so they didn't, reconstruct the interior of the house. It's still a 2-family in design. On the right-hand side of the house, there's a stairway that goes up to the 2nd story. On the left-hand side of the house is the living room. You go back of that, there's a dining room. To the right is a kitchen. And then I think that might be a porch in the back, I'm not sure. And upstairs, there's a very generous upstairs area, a living room basically, or would be up above where the existing living room is. There is no longer a kitchen, but the kitchen space is still there. So as soon as I went upstairs, I could see where the kitchen used to be. It's, you know, a little bit in back of where the stairway is. It's not a huge kitchen area. It doesn't have any kitchen appliances in it. What really struck me about the house, because I hadn't been in it before, until I wrote this follow-up letter, is it's just really beautiful. They've done a gorgeous job of updating in the house. It's a what's called a craftsman style architecture outside. When they decided to not use the two-family, they moved the porch from the right to the left, the right-hand entrance, and have a sort of a craftsman style porch with a roof and stairs. It's really attractive. And it's away from the tree now, so you can, it looks better. The house is better balanced. If they did restore the two-family, they would put a door in the front of the house, but it would be an inconspicuous door with just a stairwell, you know, no porch. And the fact is they could add that porch now if they want. I mean, they could add that door if they wanted to now. That's allowed by the building code. And it would lead directly into an entry and stairwell that exists and has never been changed. So, you know, I'll go through the rest of the comments that were provided. But basically, to restore this two-family use, you just have to install kitchen appliances again. And they'd like to put that second door in on the right. But it would not, you know, architecturally, the main door would be the one on the left that it currently exists, and it's quite attractive. First of all, I want to say that the spirit of compromise expressed in the suggestion from neighbors for some other way to do this, we really appreciate that. And I know a good bit of thought went into it. And what it says to me is that, you know, they don't dislike their neighbors, but they're worried about what might happen after the neighbors no longer own the property. And so how do you do something about that? If you were issuing a special permit, it could be time limited, or it could be limited to the recipients. But a variance doesn't have those characteristics. And we have no zoning right now that allows you to issue a two-family use unless, you know, without having a two-family on each side of the house, with a special permit, and then allows you to, you know, would then allow you to put those conditions in. So it's a kind of a dilemma. I mean, the suggestion is an interesting one, and I wish there were zoning that allowed it. So I just want to explain that what the Chauvets are intending to do is very much within the spirit of that request. They intend to continue to live in the property well into their old age. They want to stay here. They love the neighborhood. They love their house. They do intend to eventually convey ownership to their children. So for a long period of time, you can expect that the Chauvets are going to own this house. Their plan is not to sell it for a profit, you know, to a developer or anybody else. They intend to stay here, and they want to stay here, but they don't need as much space as they have. And the house is laid out as a two-family. It was used for the last 83 years as a two-family prior to 2011. And it just seems kind of obvious to them that it would be a good use to again go back to allowing the two units. They would like the company. They would like having someone living upstairs or whichever unit they chose to live in. And maybe it would be one of their children. And of course, that would be a happy situation for them if that's what happened. So their intentions are consistent with the neighbor's concern. They intend to stay here. They want to continue to own the property. And this is one of the ways that allows them to stay. So the house was constructed with a lot of space in the first, second, and attic floor. It was designed with 2 garage units underneath the house, which is kind of unusual. So when it was constructed in 1928, thought was given to parking. And when the Chauvets bought the house, the backyard had gravel all over it. They've since landscaped it in a very nice way, and they're proposing to keep as much landscaping as possible, but to put a parking space down at the end of the driveway. As there are problems with some of the restrictions that the neighbors have asked for. My explanation is this. Street parking is not in the purview of the Board of Appeals. It's controlled by the town. The street is a public way. And so any restrictions or designation of a parking space to one property could only be allowed by the town. And I'll explain why I don't think it would be. But the method for doing this would be to apply to the Traffic Commission ask them to consider the plan. In this case, it would be to say the Chauvets could only park one car have one parking space in front of their property. If the traffic commission recommended that, they send that recommendation to the select board. Select board has to vote to approve it. So only the select board can approve variations from the open public parking on a public street that exists in our town. The problem with that proposal is that, you know, there are other two-family homes on the street, and there are no such restrictions on anybody else's property. So if you were I know what the traffic commission would say, and they would say two things. One is the parking space in front of the Chauvets house doesn't belong to the Chauvets, it belongs to the public. The parking space in front of everybody else's house belongs to the public. We all know on streets, just like I live in the street that's not too long, we tend to, if we're going to park, we try to park in front of our own houses. So the custom is that it's thought of as being a little bit more for the person that lives there. But you know, I can't think of any reason, with the possible exception of a severe handicap problem where you created a handicap parking space for a resident of a property, that this would ever happen. And I don't think that the Chauvets, I don't think you could impose a different restriction on parking in front of their house to one family than you have on other families on the street. The other problem has been taken care of. The parking in front of the gate, it is not allowed. There's no parking sign there now. And the police department will enforce that. And if someone's parked there and you don't like it, you need to call the police. They will come and they'll ticket the car. They could even order it to be towed. So I think the Chauvets have followed through on that, and we know that that would be taken care of. And there's no parking, by the way, in front of the fire hydrant either, which is, as you face the Chauvet property, I think it's to the right of the Chauvets. So the concern from the neighbor across the street, at both these houses, 12 Morton and the house across the street, they have concerns with backing out of their driveways and not hitting a car that's parked directly in back. So because of the location of the driveways, it's important that no cars be parked, of course, in front of the gate and in front of the fire hydrant. That's for the neighbor across the street. And then for the Chauvets, as long as you know, exercise, I guess I'd have to say the reasonable caution should be exercised by both of those properties for that reason. But I believe that everything that can be done has already been done to restrict parking there. And then, as I said before, the proposal was don't add a second doorway. Presumably the idea is this would make it look more like a two-family, but the main doorway is on the left, and it's clearly the main entrance. And a second doorway, they could have kept that second doorway, but the second doorway used to have a roof and be a much more elaborate entrance. They didn't want that. They didn't really need the door while they were using it for their extended family. They could add the door tomorrow if they wanted to. It's just a building permit requirement. It is a convenience. So I'm not sure. I think there are a lot of other problems, or a number of problems with the proposal, which nevertheless has been made with everybody's best interests in mind. So this plan enables the Chauvets to live here, but not alone, into their old age. It makes the best possible use of this beautiful large home, which is still laid out as a two-family home. Restoring the additional residential living unit without altering the existing well-designed structure is the best possible way to make additional apartment space. And that's something in short supply, very short supply in Milton. As a final point, we haven't discussed this, but I really want to make this point fairly strongly. Since the applicants purchased this property, there have been significant changes to the property around them, particularly to the right, where there is a high-density apartment building, and there is an existing historic house that was a single-family residence that is now a multi-unit residence. That's the yellow house. And that house is less than 100 feet away from the Chauvets. This is a far more significant change than restoring two-family use to their property. And it certainly affected the whole street, but it had the greatest effect on the Chauvets and their neighbors across the street. They are the closest to this new development, and it is a significant change So I think these factors do address legal justification for a variance. And it seems manifestly unjust to me that the applicants should be denied two-family use of their property, which was designed for that use and used that way for 83 years, while these multi-unit structures have been created next door after they purchased their home. So, you know, it's a difficult case. I understand that. I would like everybody to be comfortable with the result. It's difficult to see how that would be necessarily, but I do think there's some pretty strong arguments here for allowing the Chauvets to restore the house to two-family use. And I think there is sufficient protection in terms of parking on the street. So I'd ask you to consider still granting the variance. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any people that wanted to be heard that hadn't been heard before, or have additional things that they would like to say if they have been heard before? I'm still aware of, I'm aware that there was a petition signed by just about all of the people on Morton Terrace, as well as people on Morton Road and West Side Road, that were against the application. I don't know if anyone has changed their mind on that, probably not. But if there's anything that might not have been discussed before, I'd be happy to hear that now.
Yes, I do have a bunch of hands up, so I'll
Okay.
start with John Kelly.
And just if you could go ahead and give your name and address so that we can have a record of everything, that would be great.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Mr. Kelly, yes.
Hi, my name's John Kelly. I'm a Milton native. I grew up on Russell Street, and I've been a resident of 7 Morton Road for nearly 20 years.
Could I just add that you do look like your father?
Oh, thank you. I wasn't able to attend the previous hearing due to my travel schedule, but I do commend Danielle and the Chauvets in their efforts to reach out and listen to their neighbors' concerns, particularly around parking, and go through the ZBA for the use change. So I am in support of the use change at 12 Morton Terrace. It had previously been a 2-family for 80 plus years, like you said, up until 2011. There's other 2-family homes on Morton Terrace. So I would again support this use change. Conversely, there's other folks in the neighborhood who have converted their 1-family home into a 2-family home, subverting the zoning process and the neighbors' concerns. So I commend the Chauvets for going through the proper legal channels, the ZBA, and reaching out to their neighbors to change their use back to a 2-family home like it was.
Okay, and could you tell me your address again? I kind of missed that.
Yeah, sorry, 7 Morton Road.
7 Morton, okay. Road. Okay,
So I
thank you,
mean,
Mr. Kelly.
there's parking challenges with the illegal 2-family that we've all been putting up for years. So with the Chauvets coming to the zoning board and presenting their case, they're doing the correct thing and listening to the neighbors' concerns. So I think, again, I would support their use change.
Thank you.
Okay, Brian and Connie O'Halloran.
Hi, good evening, Ms. King. How are you? First, I wanted to do 2 things. First is just have a small statement about our continued opposition to this variance, and also to remind everyone that as I'm speaking, I'm speaking for the people who are in opposition to this. We still remain in opposition. It's not just myself and my wife speaking. In any case, I'll try to keep it short by just covering the paragraph that we sent earlier today. 12 Morton Terrace does not meet the hardship requirement necessary to allow a variance for conversion to a two-family dwelling. There is nothing pertaining to the property regarding the shape of the lot, soil conditions, or topography that prevents the property from being used as a single family under the town's zoning bylaw. The applicants have not presented any evidence of conditions that satisfy the elements required for the variance request. And that's all I had to say at the moment.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the confirmation of where you are standing on that, as well as your neighbors that you're speaking for.
William Kring.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening. My name is William Kring, 80 Elliott Street, Milton, Mass, in the same neighborhood. And I find it the height of hypocrisy and quite troubling that residents are so opposed to a property that was for more than half a century a two-family home and remained as such, not being allowed to return to that original use. And there's a number of important considerations that I would urge this board to hear and to take into consideration. Number one, the owners of this property should be commended for doing what this town would want. The owners came forward and were transparent about the change of the use of their property when it was converted to a single family. And if this board is not to allow them to continue this use of the property and return it to a two-family, that is only going to stand to ensure that future owners of multifamily properties are not as transparent of changes that they make to the use of their property. That's a first important point. Number two, as their representative noted, it's keeping with the neighborhood. There are massive apartment buildings in that area that this board has approved with less parking that baffled and befuddled me at the time. But somehow
Let
these
me just make a
residents are
correction here. I'm sorry to interrupt, but let me just make a correction here. Those changes went through the planning board, did not go through the Board of Appeals. So just wanted to set the record straight on that.
Fair enough. Well, the town government approved them. And it's been a significant area that's impacted me as a resident significantly more than anyone on Morton Terrace would be impacted by this parking situation, because there isn't sufficient parking all along Elliott Street, and yet these continued monstrosities continue to be erected. Number four, it's notable that anyone opposing this return to use as a two-family is standing in the way of the town increasing tax revenue. And that's a very important consideration here, because this property is going to continue to be increased in value. It's not going to have any impact on the property values of the properties around it. Two-family homes in Milton are in high demand because we're such an unaffordable community to begin with. And individuals are able to purchase two-family homes and finance a property and access a town with the great benefits, education systems, et cetera, that Milton has because of two-family properties. And it enriches the fabric of our community. So anyone who opposes this return to a two-family use opposes the diversity and accessibility of Milton to families. And finally, in a town that's plagued with a lack of affordable housing, from a policy standpoint, there should be vocal support from everybody for these types of proposals. And here we clearly have homeowners that did the responsible thing and are yet again doing the responsible thing. They could easily put in another door, throw in some appliances, and no one would know. And yet they're doing it the right way, and they're being penalized by this ludicrous opposition that's concerned about soil sampling. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kring.
Okay, last one is Dan Jaffe.
Dan Jaffe.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm Dan Jaffe. Along with my wife, Ann Carpenter, live at 5 Morton Terrace, so just down the street. We've lived there for nearly 33 years and raised our kids and all of that. And we live in a single family. And I don't really have an awful lot of detailed things to say other than that I have, read most of the documents and talked to the Chauvets about it. And we are definitely in support of it. We're in support generally of people being able to do what they want to with properties, obviously within the law and within reasonable standards. And I think that they are acting this way. They're great neighbors. The fact that this was for a long time a two-family, I think really negates an awful lot of criticism that could be made of it. I mean, this was the status quo for a long, long time. So that's all I wanted to say, is just to I think Mr. Kring was more eloquent than I am, but we are really supportive of this.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jaffe. That's the last one, Julia?
Sorry, one more.
Oh, okay.
Allison, yeah, Allison Cooper.
Hi everyone, I'm Allison Cooper. I live at 8 Morton Terrace. So there's one home between myself, my husband, our 2 young girls, and 12 Morton Terrace. I do want to say that I appreciate the thought that the Chauvets have put into considering concerns raised by those on the street, and our opposition to their proposal has nothing to do with how wonderful they've been as neighbors. However, we recently purchased our home last year with the expectation that we were moving onto a street into a neighborhood zoned for single family use. We, so absolutely support rental units in the community and know that we're surrounded by them on other streets nearby. But when we moved onto a dead end street zoned for single family use, we hoped that with that, it came with homeowners that were statistically more likely to be families, less likely to turn over, and lead to a real community feel for our young girls to grow up in. We have, like I said, 2 young toddlers, and we also hope that by living on a dead end street, there's limited traffic for them as they're playing in the neighborhood, and do appeal to uphold the zoning set in the neighborhood and expected by us as residents on Morton Terrace.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Cooper?
There's a couple more now.
Okay.
Jerry Moffett.
We can't really hear you.
Okay,
There we go.
hi, my husband Bob and I live at 10 Morton Terrace. We are the next door neighbors of the Chauvets. And we lived here before they converted it. We've lived here for 35 years, I think. So when we moved in, the next door was a 2-family. It was never a problem. And the Chauvets have been great neighbors. So it's not something that we object to. It was a 2-family for many, many years. And we bought this house knowing it was a 2-family next door. So as far as just the parking would be the only issue, that there's parking provided in all seasons, so there can be off the street parking. I'm not crazy about the parking in the front yard, but the rest of it seems fine to us. Yeah, anything else? No, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just want to check a bunch of hands that are still up are people that already spoke. So I'll just allow them to talk and see if they had something else to say.
Okay.
Stan Jaffe.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I had nothing else to say. I'm sorry.
Okay, the hand was still up, so I just want to check.
I believe, I have some people that are trying to speak. I think they just don't know how. Deb Alzaba, do you see her? Illegal.
No, her hand's not up, but if she would like to speak and puts her hand up, I can do that. I just allowed Brian and Connie to speak again. Their hand was up.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, this is Connie O'Halloran. I just wanted to say that it's probably worth noting that the two family that existed before down at the end of the street, the neighborhood has changed. A fence has gone up to block the end of the street, making the end of the street significantly tighter to navigate with that massive apartment building on the other side of the fence. So it isn't the same as it was for 83 years. Things have very much changed in terms of how clogged it is down there. And this happened after the Chauvets bought their home. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Halloran. Mrs. McColgan?
Hi. I just wanted to make a comment relating to the parking and specifically where it talks about the street parking. I want it to be known that the obstruction of the fire hydrant goes for the entirety of the street and not just 12 Morton Terrace. For example,
I'm sorry, could you say that again? I didn't hear all of what you had to say. About
Sorry.
the hydrant. What was that?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Sort of. In and out.
Sorry, I think my connection is poor, but I wanted to note that my concern about the fire hydrant park relates to the whole street and not just 12 Morton Terrace, and any obstruction of the fire hydrant and parking within it should be applied to everyone. And I think that the spots, when we discuss how many spots are on the street, it relates to, not being within the markings of that fire hydrant. We recently had a home doing renovations and the fire hydrant was obstructed overnight with construction vehicles. So I wanted it to be very clear that any of our parking, rules apply to the whole street.
That's absolutely correct. And you are certainly within the your rights and almost duty. If there are people parking there that are getting in the way of the hydrant, feel free to call the police because they will take care of it. And we have Ann Carpenter, who is currently on mute. Oh, she's not on mute now. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ann Carpenter, and oh, that's an interesting picture. I live at 5 Morton Terrace with Dan Jaffe, and I just wanted to say, I've been here for 33 years, and I brought my children up here, and it was a dead-end street, and it's still a dead-end street, and it was a two-family, and there wasn't problems with traffic. My children played on the street. All of the kids played on the street. I just don't see this as causing congestion on our street because it was like that for most of the time, for all of the time that my children grew up here. And I'm perfectly comfortable with having it be Danielle's children upstairs from her. And I just think that people need to remember that we did this for 30 years or 28 years, and it was fine. The traffic wasn't a problem. When someone was backing out, they told the kids to get on the sidewalk. So I just don't see the reasoning with this at all. And when I bought my house, I was aware there were 3 two-families on the street. And what's different about her two-family, going back to a two-family and the other two families on the street? So that's what I have to say. Thank you for acknowledging me.
Thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. Sandra
Hello.
Almeida?
Yes, hi. My name is Sandra Almeida, and I live at 20 Morton Road in Milton here, right around the corner. Danielle's house does not impact me. The parking does not impact me. But I will, double down on what Ann just said. My grandchildren played on Morton Terrace when they were young, and there wasn't a problem with parking or cars racing up and down or anything like that. So what I would like to say is that I am in support of them going back to a two-family house. It's their home and they would like their children there. I don't see what the problem is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Almeida.
You're welcome.
Peggy C.
Hi, my name's Peggy Conant, and I am one of the owners of one of the other two families, and I spoke last time. I'm hearing concern about cars comes up repeatedly, and I would say that if the neighbors want to get together and talk about how the road is used as a single family road, then I think we all need to be willing to talk about the deliveries, the pet services that come in and out. And we now have a commuting footprint in our block for pets.
We have a what? What was that? We have a what on
We
your
have
block?
a commute footprint for the pets on our street. And there's lots of in and outs, but I'm not sure those trips can be ascribed more to the two families than to the one families with multiple cars per single families. And I think it's a reasonable thing to be concerned about traffic on a dead end street, but let's get together and try to reduce our footprint. All of us, reduce how many times we go in and out or something, but I don't see it as a problem that one house is responsible for or should be laid at the foot of one particular home. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mrs. Conant. Mrs. Alcibi?
Hi, my name is Deb Alcibi, and I live at 11 Morton Road. And I am in support of their house being able to go back to a two-family house. My house has a legal in-law apartment that I was really blessed to find when I was looking for a house in Milton so that my in-laws could live here and help me raise my children. And I'm really looking forward to when my children are ready to move back home, that they can have a place that they can afford in Milton, because right now it's prohibitive for them to actually try to buy or even rent outside of living at my house. And I think that that's like something that we need to look at the future generations, if they want to come back to Milton, to have affordability in the houses that we own. And I have no intention of leaving. My plan is to stay here until, I can't do the stairs or my mental capacity isn't such, but, I love this neighborhood. And I think it's really important to, allow people to live in places where they can have family with them as well. So I'm in support of it. And I hope that, we can all agree on that.
Thank you, Mrs. Alcibi.
And that was the last hand.
That was the last hand. Okay. I have a dilemma. My dilemma is I am one person making a decision. And there's a lot of people that have very legitimate concerns on both sides of this equation. They all make sense to some extent. Some more than others, perhaps, but everybody has spoken and are concerned about their neighborhood in a lot of different ways. And I'm of the opinion that this is an important enough issue that I think this needs to go in front of a full board of 3 people to make the decision. The discussions that we have when we close the part of the meeting where we take evidence do in fact change minds. So even though we have heard all the evidence, talking amongst ourselves can bring us to a better decision. And I'm the only person that's ever been able to make a decision by herself on this. And I feel that this one is a little bit too complex and heavy for me to be setting precedent one way or another on affirming it or denying it. And so I would suggest that this come before. I hate to do this after we've spent a couple of nights on it already, and a lot of people have put a lot of thought and time and heart into it. But I was hoping that there was going to be some kind of consensus that we could come up with, and it's clear that that's not quite going to happen. And I think that whether I'm part of that 3-person board or not, it probably makes sense for me to be there, but I don't necessarily have to be. I think that the talking that goes amongst the board members, it has to be unanimous decision. There have been times that it's been, 2-1, and talking has turned it around. So that the person that was the one person has changed the mind of the other 2, and it goes the other way as well, where the one person can change their mind. So, excuse me. So I think because this is a truly unique situation, and I understand people, can play fast and loose with 2-family rules and so forth. I don't want this to be one of those situations where we make people go undercover, and I don't, nor do I want, the Chauvets to not have the opportunity to have that discussion amongst 3 people that all have good ideas. I can talk to myself a lot, but I think it would be better if I talked to 2 other people as well. And so I think that I'm going to decline to rule on this and suggest that Attorney McKettrick requested it go to a 3-board hearing, a 3-member hearing instead. And I apologize for causing people to have to extend this a little bit more, and do not be afraid of speaking up when this next phase of it comes, because it will be a new hearing, so the same information will have to be taken into consideration. So as I say, I do apologize for that. I thought it was something that was going to be an easier thing to make happen one way or another, and it's not. So I want everybody to have that chance with 3 people, and 3 heads sometimes are better than 1, and this is one of those cases. So I'm quite sure that can be done on this same application, and so that would be simply a matter of requesting that you go to a full board hearing on this and have that scheduled.
Okay, so I'm not completely clear on this. I know there is a way to do this when you have a hearing officer procedure. Do you know whether the Board of Appeals adopted that, and was that an appeal from your decision, or was it a referral?
Well, since I didn't make a decision, it's not an appeal from my
decision. It's not an appeal. See, so the only other way I can think of that you would do this would be to withdraw without prejudice and refile. Unfortunately, of course, I think this is going to happen anyway. I suspect that you have to re-advertise the hearing, because we have a new board, so I'm a little bit unclear, and I don't want to mess it up one way or another. I understand why you're suggesting this. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so you can't set another date. So what I would do is request in the alternative that either you allow us, and you could allow both, I think, allow us to withdraw without prejudice and file another application, but with the request that it be a full board. Or you could, and approve in the alternative, if there is a legal procedure that the board has approved for simply referring the case back to the full board, that
I
we would
believe there
certainly like
is.
that.
I
Yeah.
believe there is, so that you wouldn't have to withdraw without prejudice, because because we chose to put it in front of one person instead of three, that wasn't necessarily your decision. It wasn't your client's decision. So that'd be something that could be handled clerically.
Okay, so as long as my request is on the record, in
Yes.
case there's some problem with it.
Yes.
And as long as you say, if that were necessary, you're approving a withdrawal without prejudice.
Yes.
So that's the decision. But what you're saying is, but what I'm going to do is refer this to the full board, and everyone should be aware that I expect that that will require that the hearing be, a new hearing date will have to be set. You won't know what it is, so it's going to have to be re-advertised. And you will get notice again, just as you did for this, correct? I mean, I think that's right, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct. Since we're
Okay.
not, otherwise we'd have to establish a date today, which makes no sense because we're involving another board.
So, I mean, we've had a, good discussion and a lot of information, and it's been productive in that sense, and I really appreciate the time that you have spent. I'm sorry.
And I want
we
to,
get to a conclusion.
I want to appreciate all the time that everybody else has put into this, the heart and soul. You can hear it. I have been thinking about this a lot over the last month, a lot. And it's full of interesting questions. It really is. And I think you deserve 3 people. I think you deserve 3 people.
That's fine. I mean, we're not going to oppose it. Why would we? And clearly you're not prepared to make a decision at this point. So whatever is necessary, as I say, we made the request to withdraw without prejudice if that's necessary. Otherwise, of course, we would acquiesce to having your referring it to a full board. So, and thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome. And thank you to all of the people that spoke. Like I say, I value all of the information that you've given. And I hope that this can be handled well by 3.
Okay. Whether this is all recorded, so the record is available, I assume on YouTube or whatever. Do you know how this works with these?
I don't. I know the town meeting is on YouTube. I don't know if that's something that was requested, Julia.
Yeah, so it's recorded through Milton Access TV, and then it's on their YouTube page. So if you
Okay.
go to YouTube and search
Okay.
Milton Access TV, it'll be there.
So the board, a new board would have the opportunity if they wanted to sit through it, but no, I mean, really, they probably should.
They probably
Review the
should.
discussion that's occurred, and so no one has wasted their time in writing letters and providing testimony. And we haven't either. And of course, I could incorporate everything that I've already submitted to the.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Give it to the new.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to check on that.
Okay, yes.
All right, we can have
So
dinner.
thank you all.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.